Good afternoon, everyone. I call this September 12, 2024 Jacksonville Water and Sewer Advisory Committee meeting to order. Mr. Vice, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda items for this meeting? Are there any discussions? Hearing none, I accept the motion to accept the agenda.
I make a motion that we accept the agenda.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Agenda adopted. Has everyone had a chance to review the last meeting's minutes? Those are minutes from June 13th. All right, are there any omissions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to accept the minutes as written.
Okay, I make a motion we accept the minutes as written.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Minutes approved. All right, again, it's been a while, but I'd like to welcome everyone here, and we have plenty of briefers that are welcome. Thank you for doing this. In doing so, I'll go ahead and turn it to Mr. Hanson.
All right, good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board. The first thing on your agenda tonight is officer elections. So every year after June, the first meeting after June 30, we have to elect a new chair and a new vice chair. The rules on chair and vice chair is that you can only serve 2 consecutive terms. So Mr. Schiffelbaum is not eligible to be chair, although he could hold vice chair. Mr. Simondaris has only been vice chair for 1 year, so he's eligible for either position, and the rest of the board is eligible for any position. So with that, we do open nominations and consideration.
Well, I'd like to start off. I'd like to nominate Mr. Sanders here to be the chair.
I second the motion.
All right.
Vote.
All right, just take a vote.
All right. All in favor of having Mr. Sanders as the chairman, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
All right.
Now another chairman. Congratulations.
All right, now vice chair.
All right. I'll accept the motion for vice chair.
Well, I nominate Mr. Cook over here to be vice.
I will second that. All right.
Vote.
All right, Mr.
No, you need to vote. You do need
All
to
right.
vote.
We all in favor of voting Mr. Cook there as the vice chair?
Aye.
Any second? All right. All in favor? Yeah, aye. All right. I'll get that straight someday. Okay.
That's right.
Congratulations, you're vice chair.
So that'll take effect at the next meeting.
Roger.
All right, if we can move on. Tonight you get to hear from the Public Services staff a lot more than me. They're very excited about that because that means that they can move it along faster. But we do have a few updates for you. The first is the lead and copper rule that's coming to a head very quickly. Matter of fact, TJ is going to talk all about that. So I'd like to turn it over to our Utility Maintenance Superintendent, Mr. TJ.
Thanks for having me this evening. I want to touch on a few things this evening related to the lead and copper inventory that is required from all municipalities, water systems, private water systems, and so on and so forth. This evening, what you'll get from this is the dates that will be the end of the project and the start of a new phase of some different things on where we're doing these inspections and so on and so forth. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. So the lead and copper rules were implemented in 1991. This was part of the Safe Drinking Water Act that was designed in 1974. And that was for the entire country to reduce the amount of lead in the water systems as well as other contaminants to keep the citizens safe. The latest revision requires that all 60,000 plus systems, whether that's municipalities, private water systems, create an inventory of water service materials. What we're doing is we're going on both sides of the water service. Our service line would be from the street where the main is up to the water meter. So we're doing inspections on that section as well as on the homeowner's side. So typically what we'll do is we'll excavate a couple of feet on each side to expose their water lines as well as ours to inventory what material it is. And like I said, we're looking for lead and copper because of course, lead has contaminants in it that stunt growths for children and cause learning development issues and so on and so forth. So what we're going to do is come back at a later time if we find any lead, which we haven't yet, and replace it. But I'll get to that in just a second. But I just wanted this illustration to demonstrate exactly where we're digging at. So on that side on the homeowner side, we dig anywhere from their side of the water meter up to their home, depending on what they have in their yard. Some homes or businesses might require further excavation, or so it's not all exactly the same, but we're doing the same inspection. The end result is the same. The inventory is due by October 16th of this year, which is right around the corner. It'll be here sooner than we think. And being that we have over close to 20,000 connections, as you can imagine, that takes quite some time to inventory every connection. 10,157 of these connections and establishments were built prior to 1987. So in 87, the Safe Drinking Water Act was revised again to ensure that there were no lead pipes being put in the system. And that was throughout the entire country. So we have roughly 10,000 establishments that were pre-87. So those are the ones that we're focusing on first. Of those roughly 10,000, we have completed 4,000, which is a greater number than we expected to be with the workforce and the resources that we've had thus far. So the unknowns will have to be reported by November 15th, because of course we'll turn in those 4,000 and we haven't found any lead. We'll turn those in and the remainder will have to give notification. Those notifications have to go out by November 15th. And that's—
Will they give you an extension on that, saying that you need all that?
Yes, sir. So that stage there, that's just going to be for the notifications. So afterwards, we'll have another opportunity. It's going to be another year. It'll be October 16th of the next year to complete the inventory. If it has not been completed at that point, whatever is left, whatever your unknowns are at that time, must be replaced. Yes, so we expect we'll be well ahead of that. We've got some new ways of doing things, and as we have done them, production has picked up. So we'll be ahead of the game.
All right.
And that'll be the November 15th notification will be for the unknowns, lead, and the GRR, which is the galvanized requiring replacement. So, and the reason behind that is because when you have lead upstream of copper or galvanized lines, the lead can leach into the copper and form its own, it holds the lead, and therefore it'll transmit through the homes and to other areas. So it's coming faster than what I wish I could slow it down, but I can't.
Right.
But it's going to be something that'll be right around the corner, and we've done well trying to get it knocked out, and we plan to get the rest of it done.
Have you got any pushback from the homeowners digging their lawn and all that?
Yes, we have. The biggest thing is, especially in the summertime where everybody is out watering their lawns and has the sod nice and fresh. But what the crews have done is they've kind of perfected it to where they can cut out a patch
Okay.
and set it to the side. And once they're done with the inventory of the inspection, they'll fill it back up and try to place that grass back.
Minimize the damage.
Yes, yes. So we do the best we can to restore it to its original appearance.
Well, you've done my house and it turned out all right. It wasn't a big deal.
Right. So I appreciate that. Appreciate everybody's patience with us.
Question one more time, when you're talking about if it goes another, all those that haven't been inventoried must get replaced.
Right. And
That's from both sides, the homeowner and the city?
that hasn't been determined yet.
Okay, because I know we've talked about in the past, what is the homeowner going to be responsible for?
Right.
And you haven't heard anything on that yet?
And we haven't. And another thing is, a lot of this is these entities kind of feeling their way around because this is a large project. So just in this phase, the requirements have changed several times. So the full replacement may not even be required once that time comes around, because they realize how much money that it's going to cost to replace what is known to have lead. So we're hoping that they will, kind of give us a break on having to replace anything that's unknown. And they probably
Who is
will.
they?
The ETA.
Is that ETA federal,
Right,
state?
yes.
Or both?
And it's all of them, and it's all related to the Safe Drinking Water Act, so it's for the entire country.
Okay.
So it's EPA, it was enacted by EPA, forced down to the states for enforcement. So we answer to the state, who is responsible for answering to EPA. So
All the above.
our contact is the state. So we have a direct contact with the state. So, and one thing that I think we should highlight is, while we've done these inspections, they do allow for predictive modeling based on what you found through actual sampling, and then what in that area was built generally in the same time frame with other parameters associated. We could use, that is an allowed method, we could use that method, but if you haven't found anything, what does your predictive model say you're gonna find? Nothing. So we recognize that that's really not where we wanna be either. So we're gonna visually inspect as many as we can possibly inspect, and then if we run out of time, we'll figure out how to use predictive modeling. But that's, we wanna do this. If we're going to go through the exercise, we might as well do it right. We'll use predictive modeling if we have to, but we're going to try to do the greatest number of inspections possible.
So this project will be beneficial in more than one way.
Yes.
So it'll be beneficial because it's required for one, and we'll find any lead or copper that needs to be replaced if it needs to be replaced. And the other thing is, in the future, having this data on what is in the ground, because right now there is not a lot of knowns as to what, right, exactly, because a lot of this stuff was put in the ground a long time ago. There weren't as-built, or people have changed out the materials, or added a new lot, and so on and so forth. So we're going to have some data that we'll be able to use for a long time.
Yeah. The rules were different back then. They weren't
Correct.
as precise as they are now, sure.
Exactly.
Understood. Now, obviously, we think about you saving money, because when you said, we're going to change all the ones, I said, well, what if you're changing one, then it's correct? You can change it anyway, so you
Right.
might
And
save yourself some there.
I'm hoping that that's something that they're using to encourage us to go ahead and get things done in a timely fashion. But, so the big dates are the October 16th and the November 15th.
Has there ever been any data of anyone, especially in Jacksonville, that's actually been harmed from the lead pipes? Any
None at all.
deformities or anything? There's no data on that at all, is there?
None at all, as well as most other places, but because of the events that have happened in the recent years in other states, it's necessary not just for those states, but for everybody, so that everybody is on the same page to prevent it from happening again.
And we follow lead and copper rules, so we do sampling every 3 years. And we have a list of addresses that we have to go to. And there's certain parameters about in how those homeowners are to pull those samples. And in the time I've been here, which is, I've been here 20 years, but in the last 15, I've been involved in that. We've had maybe 3 or 4 that even popped positive for lead. And in every situation, we went and talked to the homeowner to try to figure out what happened. And in each time, it's been some sort of unique scenario. In the last one, there was two samplings ago, and I remember it specifically because it was a gentleman that had a house in the downtown area that was built in the 40s or 50s. And he had a bathroom that he hadn't used in years because he lived alone. And as part of that, you're supposed to, pull it from a regularly used faucet or spigot, but it's supposed to be the first one you would use that morning. So before you've used any lead. So it sat in there, not really longer than a day, but overnight, right? So then you pull it. Well, he forgot to do it, so he went to the bathroom he hadn't used in years, and he pulled it from that bathroom, and it was positive for lead. So we had to go back and resample it, and when he did it the right way, he explained it to us, and when he did it the right way, it didn't. So even if there is lead service lines, the real challenge is contact time. The water has to sit in the pipes long enough for lead to leach into the water. So again, if you're concerned, you could always run your water for a few minutes first thing in the morning, and you won't have any issues anyway. So, but with TJ, can you go back 2 slides? So with TJ's example here, we appreciate Everett, Washington for providing such a great example. But in this example, I think it's important to note that we're checking both sides of the meter where we can easily get access, which is in typically a grassed area. There may be a few that we have to go into pavement if the meter's right on back of the curb or something like that. But what we're not checking is inside a house. So we can check our side of the line and there not be anything, but that doesn't mean that a house built in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, or early 80s doesn't have lead plumbing or lead solder inside if they have copper pipes. So it's still not a complete solution, but it will be better.
Also, since lead and copper affects children more so than healthy adults, what we've done is made it a priority to check all of the schools, all of the daycares, primary care clinics, so, for the youth and pediatrics rather, and get those out of the way so that we know definitely, because it's more effective for the children. So, does anybody have any questions on the lead and copper update?
Answers are that.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, TJ.
Thank you for having me.
Well, good evening. First thing I'd like to do is kind of give you a quick rundown over the capital improvement plan. As you probably already know, it is a 10-year planning horizon for this next cycle. It's going to be for fiscal year 26 through fiscal year 35. This is a plan that is updated annually. It's used for evaluating water and sewer rates. Helps if I go, there we go. And it's used to calculate system development fees for developers. And only the first year is funded. I just want to remind you that the first year is funded. Everything beyond that is just speculation at the time, just planning purposes. What constitutes a CIP project? It's a project that takes longer than 12 months to complete. The cost exceeds $50,000. Its useful life is greater than 5 years. Replacement and repair is based on work orders, and then, of course, new infrastructure and upgrades are based on growth and demand. There's different types of CIP projects that we put in there. First one is rehabilitation, improvement, as well as growth. Rehabilitation projects, basically they repair and extend the useful life of our infrastructure. They replace deteriorated infrastructure. We keep it the same size and capacity typically, and the source of revenue for those projects is from the monthly water and sewer rates. Improvement projects also replace deteriorated infrastructure, reduces pressure on the existing infrastructure, and has the potential to add system capacity. It provides for existing and future development, and the revenue sources used to pay for those projects are monthly and water and sewer rates, as well as system development fees. Our third type of project are growth projects. New infrastructure, additional system capacity, and again, they provide for future growth. The revenue sources for those projects, system development fees, and water and sewer service area fees. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go over current projects update. Next month, we're going to discuss more of the next fiscal year's projects in the CIP, and then review a draft in November for any questions that you all have, as well as to get any recommendations that you may have. And now I'm going to turn it over to Randa, and she'll go start off with water projects.
Good evening, all. You're going to see a lot that you've seen before, some maybe not, but the first project I'm going to discuss is the Black Creek Well Replacement Project. As you all might remember, this one was already designed. We had to go in there and do the chemical analysis, and we found fluoride. So we've had to put this project on hold while we look at other alternatives that are available. That includes evaluating some other wells and options, and doing a study for the new ground storage tank. Our Branchwood water line replacement, this project is to replace the water service lines out there in this area. We have it designed and ready to go. However, we also have some issues with the sewer infrastructure out there. So instead of going in there and, tearing up things, coming out, and then having another contractor go in there to do the sewer repairs, we decided we're going to try to coordinate that. We also need some additional funding in order to do that, so most likely it won't be until next year after we can add that funding to this project and coordinate the bidding and timing of these.
The challenge with that project is we would have gone in, replaced all the water service lines, left, patched anything that needed to be patched, left, gone back, made all the sewer repairs needed, patched everything, left, and then came back and resurfaced streets. So we would have interrupted that area's life a minimum of 3 times for extended periods each time. So if we're going to do that, we might as well just disrupt their life one time, and it'll cost us more because we'll do it all at once, but it's easier for the customers in that area.
Well, you say it costs you more, but if you do it 2 or 3 times, it won't add up to about the same, or even cost you more than that way?
Well, it'll cost us more because, I guess you could argue we should get some economies of scale maybe, but a lot of it will be sub work anyway. So And the challenge will be, instead of breaking streets up and being able to get them over periods of time, we'll have to consolidate all into one project. So it will be money we hadn't planned to spend on that area at that time. So maybe cost more isn't the right example. It just means we're spending more in an area that we weren't planning to spend that much on initially.
Gotcha.
And the next project is the Bryn Mawr water tank upgrades. This project here, the design is complete. Construction estimates came in. We're looking at receiving additional funding for it. All we're doing right now is awaiting the specs, and then we're hoping to get this out, I think, by the end of the year. So.
This one that we were talking about one time, raising up higher?
Yes.
That's the one there, isn't it?
Yes, it wasn't feasible, so we're putting in a booster
Right,
station.
so that's why I said that you went to the pump thing now.
Yes.
We still play with the repeaters and all the phone things up there.
All that stuff's staying.
That's revenue.
The bypass line cartridge filters project, everything's completed. The canisters have been ordered. It's under construction, and we're projecting this to be completed by November. Gum Branch Central chlorine scrubber. We received the proposals and the request approved for exemption on the standardization purposes. The scrubber was ordered, and we're expecting construction to start in December. I don't think there's any issues with that. Next are our sewer projects and the Western Regional Sewer System project. This project, it's the first phase, but we call it segment 2, and that is the portion that's from LTS to 258 that's under construction. We were supposed to be finished the end of this year. I'm looking at most likely probably late winter, early spring that portion will be done. The next phase of that force main, I have a notice to proceed for this month. So they'll start clearing, and that'll be up there by the Williamsburg Parkway. They'll start the clearing there, and then they'll work through until they get through Burton Park. That's where the other part of that is at. We're expecting that to be completed, phase 2 to be completed by the end of next year. And then the last contract for this one is the pump station and LTS upgrades. This project is going out to bid tomorrow morning. I'm hoping to have it awarded by the end of, it will be awarded by the end of the year, and construction is expected to start in early spring.
And before she leaves that, just point out, if you go back on, this is the actual installation of the line, and that picture's small, but compare the size of that pipe to the guy standing in the hole with it, and we're going down Pony Farm Road. All those houses, we're going right through their front yards, so when people think a sewer pipe, I don't think they're picturing this.
Right.
So it is, Randa coordinates daily on trying to get this installed. So I wanted to point out that it's not just, we're digging a small pipe in the ground. If you compare it to the size of the guy standing beside it, that's a big pipe.
Yeah.
And even this one here, that's the casing, and the pipe's actually 36-inch PVC, but this is the 54-inch ductile iron, or the steel casing.
So that's what goes under 258.
Oh.
So. The Holiday City lift station, the planning evaluation is underway. We're looking at alternatives. We're trying to finalize the design, so we also need to obtain some permits. We'll prepare the bids, and construction, we're hoping mid to late winter. The Shoreline Drive lift station elevation, this project was designed in-house. It's the watertight hatch. It's been ordered, however, there is the 12-week lead time, and it was just ordered, so, in the lead time, we're not sure if it's going to be that 12 weeks, a little bit longer, a little bit less, but we're expecting it to be completed within the next few months, depending on when it comes in.
And just for reference, if you look, you can see the river in the background. During a storm, it'll actually come out of its bank and overtop this, which then forces water directly into our system. And then secondly, if you see the piece of concrete in the very bottom corner, that's actually the curb for the roadway. So this thing, it literally sits 2 feet off the side of the road. So we're trying to balance, not letting water into our system, having good service, and being somewhat, doing what we can aesthetically for the neighborhood.
And how high is the lift supposed to be again?
Well, it'll be flush to the ground.
Oh, it will. I thought it was just.
Yeah, so it'll be 6
6
inches.
inches high. It's gonna
So it'll sit up 6 inches.
Right.
Which will still get flooded if.
It'll get flooded, but it's warm and dry.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah,
So the idea is it can handle the water pressure on top.
Gotcha.
And right now it does not.
can.
I mean, you can see it's just a little hatch.
Uh-huh.
The biofilter upgrade at Bryn Mawr, this was another design in-house. The biofilter has been purchased, and as you can see in the pictures here, the pad's been installed, and the installation is expected in this winter. LTS facility improvements, the chlorine scrubber was installed, the pump and motor has been ordered, as well as the automatic transfer switch. And the SCADA has been updated. We've got some other stuff that'll be part of the pump station and LTS upgrades, I think, later on to coordinate with that. But other than that, and the station improvement remaining, that's it. Oh, wait. Sorry, words. I'll let Christy take the rest.
Good evening. The fiscal year 22-23 inflow and infiltration project, we had 14 areas that we identified. We are continuing to evaluate that and making a list. And as part of that, we are also going to rehabilitate some failing manholes that's currently out to bid. I'll show you some examples of what that will look like in the next couple of slides. Part of our I&I project, we utilize funding with TJ's crew on Highway 24. I'm sure probably y'all saw that. I think it was 1,200 feet of bypass pumping that your crew was having to maintain. If you'll look in the picture on the left, you'll see the rings that actually had fell during the failure process, and you can see the plastic that's catching in that sewer line. So they actually had to go in and cut out those gaskets and then ended up lining it, which is the second picture to the right, is where we lined those. This next slide here is an actual manhole that we did on DeWitt Street, and that's what we're looking to do with the bid that's currently out. Rehabilitating those manholes. Wally, did you want to talk about that process a little bit? Just a little.
Sure. So what's interesting about this process and the reason we want to try it is this manhole that was done was set up and done in the matter of basically a morning. It was actually less than a morning. They went in, they sprayed, they caulked it basically. They injected grout where we had water coming into the manhole. And then they went through and used a three-part, it was three, right? They did a liner and then basically a primer and then a coating that's several millimeters thick. And then another polyurethane coating on top of that. So, and they did it all with you can actually see the guy is in there, but there was flow through that manhole the entire time. So, and of course they did that one for free for us, but the cost is somewhere around $300 a vertical foot for this liner. TJ went in and had an emergency right before this was done behind Platinum on 24. And that manhole was 12 feet deep, I think. and he had to replace it, and that manhole cost him $30,000, give or take.
Yeah.
And we had to set up bypass pumping. If we'd have found that manhole a little bit sooner before that one actually started caving.
Right.
So if we would have found it, we could have used this process and never had to spend that money. So we're actually our goal will be to have, like our I&I project, a reoccurring manhole project. So what we found is we do a really good job of lining, but that doesn't address the manholes. So this will be a separate project, still as part of our I&I effort to address manholes. And we have a lot of manholes in the city that are actually brick. I wanted to go back to this one for a minute too, to kind of point out, this was Highway 24. This is inside the pipe. This is concrete reinforced pipe. The challenge here is the Ellis Lift Station dumps into an upstream manhole of this gravity sewer. So one of the challenges we have in this area is hydrogen sulfide gas. And the problem is it likes to eat concrete. So here's kind of the proof. If you look at the top, you see this thing that looks like, I don't know, a railroad track or a ladder or something. That's actually the steel reinforcement inside the concrete pipe. So the top couple of inches of concrete have actually eroded off, which then fall into the sewer as sand, which creates blockages and impediment. And then, as Christy talked about, the ring that fell with what looks to be plastic hanging up. And if you look past that one, you'll see another one. It was literally at every joint. What happened is the concrete pipe failed to the point where when the pipe is pushed together, there's a rubber gasket there. The inner concrete failed, the rubber gasket fell into the pipe, and that's what was grabbing it. So we actually had sanitary sewer overflow because of this, which is how we were able to find it. So it just shows the importance of our I&I efforts, and it's a good way to preemptively go in before we have immediate failures that we have to address through emergency. All right.
All right. Next, we have the Mill Avenue sewer replacement. This design is complete. This was also designed in-house, and we are preparing to put this out to bid, and we would expect the construction to begin in spring of 2025. Any questions on the I&I or water and sewer projects? Now, this will be a hot topic, I'm sure. The New Bridge Street scape infrastructure. I first want to talk about some of the challenges that we have run into with this project. Just down from Boomtown Furniture on that same side of the road, we come across 3 underground fuel tanks that were not abandoned properly. So obviously we had to do the remediation removal, which we utilize city staff to do that, dispose of those properly, as well as the unsuitable soils. So we got rid of that. And then the picture to the left is the fiber optic duct bank that runs the entire length of New Bridge Street. It is encased in concrete, which is also encased in terracotta pipe. It's probably hard for you to see in the picture, but this has been in the ground since like the 40s, I think, and it's very brittle. This first picture here of it, actually, we were 16 feet underneath that terracotta pipe with the storm drain. So every time that we cross that, which will be 4 times with this project, we've completed 3 of the 4 so far. We have to have a 50-foot pole laid across it, and then we brace it to hold it while we're digging underneath. So it is, obviously we have to expose a lot of the soil in order to get the storm drains down there, and it's a process. So that's 2 of the challenges that we have had, as well as every one of the businesses, we are going right up to their doorway entrance to install new sidewalk. If you've been down New Bridge Street, you know none of the entrances are the same. Some of them have been remodeled, built right on top of the old sidewalk. So every storefront is a case-by-case basis. But I have to say, those business owners have really been patient and understanding during this process, and I appreciate it a lot. I try to stay in contact with them on a daily basis, but we are looking to hopefully have this completed at the end of the year, so.
Oh,
Yeah. This second slide here, you're starting to see some of the things come together with the landscape medians, the new sidewalk, and the brick utility strip. Obviously, we've removed all the utility poles. Overhead utility has gone underground. You see the new street lining, and then the medians in the center as well. The fiscal year 23 infrastructure rehab, the survey of DeWitt Street and North Bay Shore has been completed. This design is underway. We will have to obtain state permits, and one thing that I always like to bring up about that is sometimes we're not in control of how long that takes. So it may delay us getting the construction started, but we're looking to begin that this summer of 2025.
but DeWitt Street's gonna be a challenge, isn't it?
It is.
Yes, yeah.
They're in bad shape.
It is.
Yes.
It's the worst street in the city. It's going to take, it'll need water, sewer, and possibly even some stormwater repairs and replacement to get that street where it needs to be so we can resurface it.
And it's highly traveled.
Yes, yes, there's going to be, we'll have to figure out a detour plan for that street because some of it will be right in the middle of the street. So it'll be an interesting project, but it's necessary.
Yes. US 17 North Drummer Kellum Water and Sewer Extension. This design is complete. We have obtained the state permits. We are in the process of getting the NCDOT encroachment agreement, and we expect to bid that within this month, with construction to begin January of 2025. Turn it back to you, Roy.
Okay, all right. So next steps. Next month, we're going to discuss future projects, new projects that have been submitted by different departments throughout the city. At that point, we'll finalize the draft of the CIP. We'll do a rate analysis, adjust any programmed projects that we have, and then we'll present it to you for your support. That will eventually be presented to City Council for approval and adoption. Our schedule right now we're still going through the CIP development process, taking on, getting submittals for new projects. We're discussing them and figuring out what's getting put in when and where. Next month, we'll present all those new projects to you. November, we'll review the future projects as well as the draft of the CIP and present it to you all. And then, of course, if there's any changes that are recommended, we'll take a look at that, and then we'll ask your support for the CIP to present to City Council. January through May, obviously, the city will be going through its budget preparations, and then, of course, in June, the adoption of the budget, and in line with that is the adoption of the CIP.
To add to what Roy's saying, if you'll remember, historically, our timeline has been, we kind of start in the October timeframe, and then this group, we work with this group. November, we typically take a break in December because it falls right around when people would be taking, Christmas breaks, kind of the start of this getting out of school and those kind of things. But then in January, February, and sometimes March, that's where we really hit the CIP hard for this group. And we do it over multiple meetings. The challenge is we've been tasked with moving the CIP earlier in the budget process because the CIP is such a large component of the budget. So how can you build a budget around the largest component when the largest component isn't getting done until March or April? So the idea is if we can finish the CIP, at least the final draft, it's still not approved, but the final draft by December, that allows finance and management to make decisions about the rest of the budget and get it to City Council in a timely manner. So The challenge, of course, is the first year, so it feels like we just ended the budget year and we're turning right around and starting with CIP projects, but what we're trying to do is get it in by December. Well, if you look at this board, we took projects in August, we're here in September with update of the current. We'll be back to you in October with at least a rough draft. It might be rough, but a rough draft of what you're going to see in the CIP. And then in November, we'll be talking to you about whether you're comfortable with where we're at and you're comfortable then giving a recommendation, or whether we get that presentation and then you say, we want more information and we do meet in December. So just remember, we're taking what is done in about 5 meetings and consolidating it down into 3, maybe 4 meetings. So it does put more work on staff. So just, we are geared up, we're prepared. And I think after we get through this year, next year will go a little more smoothly because we won't have quite as many changes all at once, and we'll be prepared. So just a reminder, we'll be, from now till December, it's going to be CIP, CIP, CIP. So, but we'll try to get you all the information you need to make a recommendation to City Council and support that. At least on a draft. That doesn't mean it's the ultimate final, because the final's not really adopted till the whole budget is built, but at least a draft to City Council.
With the consistency you've had with the CIP up to this point, I mean, we've looked at a lot of that stuff already. I mean, everything you said, we mentioned before. So the transition with the new projects and what needs to be done, you've already identified it, so.
That's what we're hoping, so. But the idea is if we can build the process, then we just continue that process.
That's it for me.
Open discussion. All right. Again, we thank everyone for briefing us on this. I know there's a lot of information there, but does anyone have any other further questions of everything we've talked about today to the staff?
No, I think personally they've done an excellent job as always. Appreciate it.
Well, it's those 3, they've got not only all the projects you saw tonight, but probably a dozen other recreation, fire, police, special initiative type projects. So they're
Busy.
busy. That's a good way to say it. You could start a firm with the number of projects that we produce.
Yeah.
With meetings like this, it only lets the public know that this is what's going on, and then they get to see all the things that go on behind the scenes and all that. And we appreciate it. And in fact, as you talk, we think about our own homes. How does what you're talking about affect us, which affects everybody else? And we have learned, and I'm recalling the last December, there was all those emergencies you went through, and we haven't forgotten that. At least I haven't forgotten about all those emergencies that came up at the last minute. So it's appreciated, and we know that the city's in good hands as far as planning and saving money. It's the big issue we're on. We all know that, so we appreciate that.
Well, we have one other item for you tonight.
Yes, sir.
If you've driven over by the Jacksonville High School here lately, you might have noticed some work going on in the water tank over there behind that Walgreens. In fiscal year 25, we brought in our final elevated water tank into the asset management program under USG, and they have just completed the exterior renovation. So it looks sharp. If you haven't had a chance to get over there in that area, I suggest going after school, because that intersection can be kind of nuts with the kids running around. But very proud of it. I think it looks great. There were a bunch of old antenna cables up there that were also removed, that were no longer needed or no longer in use. So it looks a lot more clean up there.
Yeah.
So they have an interior renovation as well on that, but that concludes our elevated water tanks. And the crew was able to move from this project right down the street to the water treatment plant ground storage tank, where they are completing, well, they just started a couple days ago, the exterior renovation of the concrete ground storage tank. So we expect them to be done with that by the end of the month. It won't look quite the same as the elevated water tank because we're going to paint it to match the exterior facade of the water plant. So it's going to be more of a beige when they put that final Timac finish on it. But what they're going to do there is, it's more than a pressure wash. It's more than your standard pressure wash to clean all that off. And then they're going to go through and strip coat and crack seal before they put that final protective coat on there and add a little bit of color. So that should be completed by the end of this year. Or I'm sorry, the end of this month. So we're pretty happy with that progress.
Good. Beautification is always important.
Yeah, you might not see this one as much. Maybe as that area develops, you might see it a little bit more, but not too many folks have a reason to go down that road right now.
I have one other thing I'd like to share with you. We get calls periodically about leaks that have been out there for extended periods of time. I know we've said this a couple of times. We prioritize repairing leaks based on the amount that it's leaking, the damage to either private property or public infrastructure that the leak is causing, and when we can get locates and when we have staff available and when we have materials available. We've talked about this before. We can staff so that we can repair about every leak the day that it happens and we find out about it. The problem is, as you can imagine, everybody's water bills will be through the roof. And then their sewer bill would be the same because we have an equal number of sewer repairs that we do as well. So obviously that is not an option. So we do have to prioritize the leaks that we have. So we try to balance our manpower along with, and TJ and I both get this call probably weekly. There's hundreds of gallons of water running down my street, right? Well, that does have a cost associated to it. We admit that that has a cost associated to it. But it's much less than paying a crew to be present even when there's not leaks available. That said, the other challenge is, even if we had the positions available, whether we could actually hire the people and get them into the position and keep them. So just to give you kind of an update, right now we have 70 water and sewer leaks on the board. That is a staggering number, obviously. We do prioritize those. We are hitting the ones that we can the fastest. I think that typically if it's one that we can handle in-house, we're doing probably 3 to 4 a day. If it's a service leak, obviously that's much easier, quicker, 2-man crew. We can do more. But obviously a service leak doesn't always have the same effect that a water main leak has. On top of that, TJ's sitting with 4 vacancies in utility maintenance right now. On top of, I think you've got 4 or 5 positions where the person's been in their position for less than 6 months out of 40. So if somebody wants to do that math and figure out we're running somewhere around a 20% turnover in the last 6 months, how does anybody keep up with? To all the citizens out there, we recognize that there's leaks. We will address them as we can, but we do prioritize them. And just because one has been leaking and you don't think we know about it, I can promise you, call it in anyway. We will update you, but we will get to it. It just, unfortunately, it takes time. And again, we could go hire, if we could find them, we could go hire a whole nother crew. But to do that and get the equipment, it would be a direct effect on everybody's utility bills. So Just, we've talked about that before, but I did want to throw that out there because TJ battles that every single day. And it's on my mind because we had that discussion literally this afternoon at about 4 o'clock. So, and I think that was the second one this week.
And while we were having that discussion, we got emails about 2 other leaks that had been called in. So it's a never-ending cycle.
Sure.
You know, while we're fixing one leak, we have to call a man or a crew member off to go check on another leak that was called in across town. So we have to add that to the list. So like I said, it's an ongoing challenge, but don't think that we have forgotten about it. You know, and I know it's unfortunate, or a lot of people get frustrated, but we are working as hard as we can to get these things rectified.
One thing I think it's missed for TJ's crew is what we're not getting a lot of. We're not getting a lot of calls for illicit discharges because
Or
of the hard
sanitary
work that
sewer
they are
overflows.
for the work that these guys are doing for the capital projects that we got going on. So we are in a much better spot than maybe some other places. So I know I get those calls too, just like everyone else at this table. If it's a sewer issue, those guys are going to stop what they're doing and move from maybe a water repair to do that sewer assessment to make sure that bad things aren't happening. So.
But no, all this is good information because it happens in our streets.
Yep. Right.
And we see a leak on the street as we're driving home. I feel, I'm sure we speak for the rest of us, is that it's a civic duty. Let somebody know that that's happening.
Right.
Because you folks are busy, we know that.
Right.
And I said, hey, but the satisfaction is when you call up and the lady, whoever answers the phone, we report this is going on, and she says, Roger, I got it, or it's been reported already, it eases off saying that, okay, we did our duty. Because wasting water for us is a big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
And for you, the big pipes that you showed is amazing. But, we have to report it. We feel good that somebody says it's acknowledged. Okay, good. That's all I want to hear, that somebody knows about it.
But it may sit there a month. If it's literally a trickle and it's run into a storm drain and it's not affecting anybody, it may sit there a month or 2 months.
Right.
Because we've got one that's shooting 10 feet in the air. Obviously, that one gets priority.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I say that jokingly, but that happens.
And then
So-
in certain areas, you have different materials in the ground for backfilling. So if it's a small leak, it's harder to trace where that leak might be coming from. It may be coming from 50 feet away, or it may be coming from 3 feet away. But we have to try to not only prioritize by the amount of water, but by the location where the water leak is. Is it causing puddling or slippery driveways or so on and so forth? Right. So there are a lot of different things that go into prioritizing other than just the amount of water that's being lost.
And that's good for everybody to know, and it's appreciated that the effort is there.
Is it feasible to look at contracting some of this?
We do contract some out. But again, that comes at a cost.
No,
Is
it feasible?
Yeah, it is. And TJ, anything that his crew, typically we don't go below 5 feet. So or a real long run. So if it's something like that, TJ, we have emergency on-call contractors that we call in. So we do that. So yes, we try to balance everything, but to pay a contractor what we can do, there's a cost to that also.
One more question and I'm done.
But, for the cost of one crew member, you can lose a lot of water, so much less to actually make a difference and have multiple, to have a whole nother crew.
And
you need at least 3 people and equipment.
Right.
So then you're talking $100,000 piece of equipment or more.
Right.
So it's just, we try to walk that fine balance. At some point, we'll need them, and we'll ask for them, but we're trying to find that balance.
My last question, promise you. With this leaking, like in the roads especially, and say it goes a month or two, is there any concern about it washing out and then you have like a sinkhole, or especially for car drives across? That's my concern when I see it.
Right, so we base that off of how much water is being, that goes back to what I was speaking of a little while ago, the area, the materials.
Yeah.
So we have historical data of what is underground in certain areas. If it's a sandy area, we would be more prone to having a cave-in. But if it was compacted well or a newer asphalt and it has a leak under it, then we know that we have more time. So like I was saying, where we take a lot of different things into consideration when we prioritize, that's one of them. Because we don't want to wash out, and we do see it pretty often, but we have ways of what I call a scratching patch, where we'll go in and we'll take out some of that asphalt and inspect, because it's not just water, we do it with sewer as well. So if it gets to that level, we go ahead and take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
But yes, it does happen from time to time where the water will erode the underlying materials in the ground.
I'm done.
All right. Is there anything else? Again, in closing, I'd like to thank everyone for taking your time to doing this, and I know we appreciate it. I'm sure everyone else does also. So in closing, our next regular scheduled meeting is for 5:30 p.m. on Thursday, October 10th. The same classroom here and everything else. If there are no further business, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.